Picking up with the end of the chapter, the Siege of Gondor, we see the Lord of the Nazgul ride through the gates of Gondor that no enemy had ever yet crossed. And Gandalf is sitting there on Shadowfax. And Gandalf tells the Lord of the Nazgul, "You cannot enter here." And the huge shadow halts. "Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back. Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go!" And the Black Rider flings back his hood. And he cries, "Old fool! Old fool! This is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain." And with that he lifted high his sword and flames ran down the blade. But Gandalf doesn't move. Tolkien sets up here this almost cataclysmic or catastrophic battle between the two. And instead, in the silence that comes after the Dark Rider speaks, we hear a rooster crow in the background. And the rooster's crow is answered by the horns of the Riders of the Rohirrim. Now it seems to me what Tolkien is doing there is he's alluding to, at least somewhat, Gandalf's reference to himself as a steward of all that is good and living in Middle-earth. When he told Denethor, that he will not have wholly failed as long as something living survives through this night. Well, this crow is one of those things. Or this rooster, excuse me. And what has the rooster done? The rooster has just simply announced the coming of a new morn. The rooster is unaware of all this great war and strife that's going on all around him. Okay? Tolkien seems to me to be showing there that the world goes on. The natural world, at the very least, goes on. And that while darkness may attempt to overcome, it cannot wholly. It's like the scene back at the crossroads when Frodo and Sam see the head of the king, the Stone King, lying on the roadside. And a shaft of sun shoots down the tunnel of the road that they were going down. And the beams of light alight on this stone head. And it's as if he has a crown again. And Frodo says, "They cannot conquer forever." That's what the crow is saying. Excuse me, the rooster. They cannot conquer forever. So we go to the Ride of the Rohirrim. And we're going to skip that chapter and go right to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Theoden arrives. And Theoden is attacked by the rider, the Lord of the Nazgul. And Theoden's horse falls on him. And the Lord of the Nazgul goes to allow his winged steed, whatever that is, to eat the horse and Theoden. And suddenly Durnhelm shows up. And Durnhelm says, "Begone, foul Dwemerlake," on page 841. "Begone, foul Dwemerlake, Lord of Carrion. Leave the dead in peace." And the Lord of the Nazgul says, "Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn." And Durnhelm pulls out the sword and says, "Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may." "Hinder me, thou fool? No living man may hinder me." Now, the captain of the Nazgul, the Lord of the Nine, the Witch King of Angmar, thinks when he says, "No living man may hinder me," I believe at least that he thinks that believes that means all humankind. No living person may stop him. But Durnhelm takes that reference to gender, man, to be specific. It's not no living humankind. It is no living man, no male of the species. And Durnhelm pulls off her helm and says, "But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Eowyn I am, Ealman's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin." She's getting her glory that she wants. But more importantly, because the Riders of the Rohirrim and the Society of Rowan is ultimately an Anglo-Saxon society, she is following good Anglo-Saxon warrior ethic way of living. And what I mean by that is the Anglo-Saxons were a Germanic people. And because they followed this ethical way of living. And that ethical way of living had three major precepts to it. The first one, your duty to your Lord, to do your Lord's bidding. The second one, you had a duty to your kin, to help and aid your family. And the third one was a duty to avenge the death of your Lord or your kin. Eowyn is saying, you stand between my Lord, whom I have a duty to, and you stand between my blood relation, whom I also have a duty to. If you kill them, then I will pay you for that. I will requite that death. And so the Nazgul comes closer, and the winged steed, whatever it is, lands near her, and she chops its head off. And the Lord of the Nazgul swings his mace. She blocks it with her shield, but her shield is destroyed and her arm is broken. And at that very moment, when he bends over to swing his mace and kill her, he suddenly stumbles forward with a cry of pain, and his mace stroke goes wide and hits the ground. And we're told Mary's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk, had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. Now, bear in mind, where did Mary get this sword? When Tom Bombadil rescued them from the Barrow-wight, he cleaned out the barrow of all the treasure that was there, gold and jewels and silver and plates and etc., but also swords. And he chose for each of them a sword, a dagger really, and he told them where the swords were made, and he read on the hilt that the swords were made by the high elves of Gondolin for their wars against the Witch King of Angmar. The individual that Mary just stabbed was the Witch King of Angmar. That is, this very sword that Mary used was woven, was forged, and woven with spells for this very purpose, to destroy this king. No other sword, I believe, could have done so. And the only reason Eowyn's sword, in just a moment, can kill him is because it's held not by a man. It's because it's a woman wielding the sword. So as he kind of falls, Eowyn stands. And with her last strength, we're told, she drove her sword between crown and mantle, as the great shoulders bowed before her. Her sword breaks, the crown rolls away on the ground, Eowyn falls forward onto her foe, and what do we discover? There's nothing there. All that remains is the black cloak. Because the Witch King of Angmar was truly a shade. He was a wraith. He had no physical essence, even though, yes, he could wield a mace. And so he died. Mary and Eowyn and Theoden get carried to Gondor, to Minas Tirith. We get to chapter The Pyre of Denethor, where we find out that Denethor's going to kill himself and destroy Faramir in the process. Gandalf goes up. He rescues Faramir, and in the process discovers that Denethor had a Palantir, the Palantir of Minas Tirith. And he realizes how Denethor got the knowledge that he had. So Gandalf takes Faramir to the Houses of Healing. And in the Houses of Healing, an old woman named Yorith remarks in Gandalf's hearing that the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. So Gandalf sends for Aragorn, and Aragorn comes in. And the first person he treats is Faramir. And Faramir, when Aragorn calls him, Faramir says, his very first words, "My lord, you called me. I come. What does the king command?" This is on page 866. Notice, he's never met Aragorn before, and yet he says, "What does the king command?" It's the very timbre of Aragorn's voice that Faramir recognizes, even though he's never seen him or heard him before. What does the king command? And here's Aragorn's command. Walk no more in the shadows. Rest a while, take food, be ready when I return. That's a steward's job, to be ready for the return of the king. Faramir, I will, Lord, for who would lie idle when the king has returned? Yorith, King, did you hear that? What did I say? The hands of a healer, I said. And, like wildfire, word spreads through Minas Tirith that the king has indeed returned. So Aragorn then goes to heal Éowyn, and he does to some extent, but he finally has to tell Éomer, you must call her out of the darkness, for she loves you more than she thinks she loves me. And then he also calls Merry out. Okay? So we go to the next chapter, the last debate. The debate is over, or about, what to do now. What shall they do now that they've won this one battle? And Gandalf tells them on page 878. Listen to the words of the Steward of Gondor before he died. You may triumph on the fields of the Pelennor for a day, but against the power that is now arisen there is no victory. I do not bid you despair as he did, but to ponder the truth in these words. And he tells them, the Palantir, the stones of seeing, do not lie, and not even Sauron can make them lie, though Sauron can possibly, with his force of will, make them to reveal only what he wants other people to see. But he tells them, the battle we just won was just that, a battle. The next assault by Mordor against Gondor will be even worse. So his conclusion is, towards the bottom of 878, this war then is without final hope, as Denethor perceived. Victory cannot be achieved by arms. Whether you sit here to endure siege after siege or march out to be overwhelmed beyond the river. Yet Gandalf tells them, don't despair. He's told them, we cannot win this war by arms, militarily, but don't despair. Now, he's talking to largely a bunch of soldiers, generals, colonels, captains, etc. How are they supposed to interpret this? What do you mean we cannot win this war militarily, and yet we shouldn't give up hope? Gandalf goes on. You have only a choice of evils. That is, you have no good choices. Prudence would counsel you to strengthen such strong places as you have, and there await the outset. For so shall the time before your end be made a little longer. In other words, that's one choice. Build up your defenses, man your defenses, and wait for the battle that will come. Eventually you will lose that battle, but at least you'll live a little bit longer. So Prince Imrahil says, so you'd have us retreat. Gandalf says, that would be no new counsel. This is what you've done all throughout the days of Denethor. You've built up your defenses and done your best. He said, Gandalf says, no, I said this would be prudent. I do not counsel prudence. What is prudence? Prudence is wisdom in the face of the present situation, the present reality. Gandalf says, I do not counsel prudence. I said victory could not be achieved by arms. I still hope for victory, but not by arms. They've got to be scratching their head, collective head. What do you mean? How can there be victory without arms? For into the midst of all these policies comes the Ring of Power, the foundation of Barad-dûr and the hope of Sauron.